Men do not become poor due to a lack of resources, but due to an excess of obedience. Pay attention. The most devastating strike you ever suffered did not originate outside. It was planted within. A belief was embedded in your mind, and you protected it as if it were your own. Becoming rich is hard, complicated, meant for a select few. You were conditioned to see money as something almost mystical, a coded system, a domain reserved for geniuses, the fortunate, the chosen. And as you repeated this with quiet acceptance, wealth kept doing what it always does, moving toward those who see the game for what it truly is. Here is the part that unsettles. Wealth is not mystical. It is not a puzzle. It is not sophisticated math. Wealth is raw arithmetic, basic, almost insulting in its simplicity. What keeps it out of reach is not a lack of intelligence. It is conditioning. What holds you back is not reality. It is the moral framework installed within you. You were taught to follow a script that was never built to produce power. Be agreeable, wait in line, stay modest, work relentlessly, sacrifice, do what is right, and eventually someone will notice. That eventually is the most effective sedative ever sold. Most people never realize they are operating in the wrong game under the wrong rules. The majority plays as if it were checkers. Predictable patterns, fair turns, rewards for effort. But the elite plays war. Positioning, leverage, asymmetry, perception, necessity. In that environment, virtue is not strength. Virtue is predictability. And predictability can be used against you. Machiavelli had already grasped this when he wrote The Prince. He was not explaining how to be loved. He was explaining how to last, how to hold ground, how to avoid being undone by misplaced goodness. And the logic remains intact. The world does not reward merit. It rewards control. Money is not handed out as a prize for effort. It emerges as a direct outcome of position. If this perspective disturbs you, stop here. Return to what feels safe. But if you continue, you accept a contract to strip the illusion down to its core. Because this is not motivation. This is instruction. A way to interpret reality as it is. You will not be comforted. You will be given a framework. How power truly arranges itself, and why wealth appears difficult only to those conditioned to remain compliant. By the end, you will not leave excited. You will leave dangerous, capable of seeing what the masses do not see, capable of stopping asking for permission, capable of abandoning the character that depends on validation and approval. But before building this cold mind, you need to recognize what keeps you poor without you realizing it. And the problem begins exactly in the place you consider most noble in yourself. The common man does not lose because he is incapable. He loses because he was programmed to lose. And he does not even know it. He thinks being correct is a strategy. He thinks working hard attracts automatic reward. He thinks the world works like a courtroom where whoever suffers the most wins a medal. But the world is not a courtroom. It never was. And while he waits for justice, someone else is collecting advantage. This programming has a name. You can call it the doctrine of the donkey. Carry weight, accept orders, trust that some authority will recognize merit one day. The donkey calls this humility, calls exhaustion honor, calls submission maturity, and feels proud, because he was taught to confuse exploitation with virtue. While he carries the stone, someone else designs the bridge. While he sells hours, someone else buys systems. While he waits, someone else collects. Weakness reveals itself through recurring patterns. You evaluate your life through effort. You assign value to your actions based on how drained you feel. You set your price according to how much you endured to learn, how long it took, how much you committed. But the market does not reward suffering. It rewards relief. The market does not compensate intention. It compensates results. And if you keep acting as a good citizen, believing this will naturally generate wealth, you are attempting to be liked by a system that only acknowledges utility. The most critical point is this: the weak seek approval. They want recognition. They want the world to validate that they are good. That makes them negotiable. That makes them inexpensive. Because anyone who needs acceptance cannot enforce price. Anyone who needs to be understood cannot enforce limits. Anyone who needs approval cannot say no, and whoever cannot say no cannot scale. While you chase affection, the world evaluates you by necessity, and necessity is the only bond that does not rely on mood. Affection fluctuates. Necessity holds. What keeps you poor is often exactly what you admire in yourself. Excessive politeness, fear of seeming greedy, discomfort with competition, reluctance to charge, resistance to negotiation. The belief that asking for more is wrong. These traits serve to make you socially agreeable, not to make you unavoidable. And if you continue carrying this identity, everything else becomes secondary. You may even increase your income, but you will not dominate. Because your identity is still waiting for permission. If you've reached this point, you've already stepped into the mental field. Part of you already recognizes that wealth is not about merit. Now only one action remains. State it, not as a favor, as a break from the herd. Subscribe, not to support the channel, but because each video is a move beyond the doctrine of the donkey. It is preparation for those who choose to see the world as it is. And in the comments, write a single sentence. Do not explain, do not justify, just declare. Your mantra for today is, wealth is leverage, not virtue. Writing is not aesthetic, it is a pact. Whoever writes crosses the line between hearing and applying. Whoever writes marks the symbolic death of the character who expects reward for being good. Write and move forward. The rest is discipline, because what comes next is no longer theory, it is law, the operational structure of wealth, and it does not negotiate with feeling. For Machiavelli, the world was never a moral courtroom. It was an arena, and arenas do not reward kindness, they reward effectiveness. The mistake of the common man is insisting on judging reality as it should be, while those who win see it as it is. This difference changes everything. Because money is a mechanism of resource distribution based on utility, pressure, and advantage. And the first law you need to accept is simple. Wealth is born from solving pain, not from following passion, not from working more. Pain. Adopt the mindset of a Machiavellian prince. He does not rule based on personal preference. He rules by containing disorder. His power grows by reducing collective suffering, neutralizing dangers, and re-establishing stability. The market follows the same principle. Money represents pain that has been removed, and the magnitude of the reward is tied to how intense the pain is, how urgent it feels, how costly it is, and how rare the solution becomes. The discomfort of a dirty floor is minor. The failure of a heart is absolute. That is why those who resolve deeper pains are paid more. This leads to a harsh and precise conclusion. If you lack money, you are likely addressing problems that are too insignificant, too widespread, too simple, too easy to replace. and being replaceable erodes power. What can be replaced cannot command price. What can be replaced turns into a commodity, and commodities are always under pressure. The second law is what converts this logic into actual wealth. Leverage. Effort alone does not generate wealth. If it did, the most worn-out individuals would rule. But reality proves otherwise. Machiavelli made it clear. One must be a fox to detect traps and a lion to intimidate threats. The donkey bears the load. The fox designs the advantage. The divide between poor and rich is not labor. It is the creation of systems that expand results without requiring constant presence. Leverage takes distinct forms. The first is labor leverage, applying the effort of others, directing, structuring, coordinating, leading. Instead of lifting the stone yourself, you build the framework where 100 others do it, and you retain a share of the output because you control the structure. The second is capital leverage, putting money to work, not as illusion, but as a system, assets that generate while you are absent. The third, and most accessible today, is code and media leverage. Create once, distribute without limit. A digital asset, an audience, software, a channel, a distribution network. This very video demonstrates it. It is produced once, consumed repeatedly, and can return value without the author's continued presence. If your income depends on your physical presence, you operate with zero leverage. And zero leverage imposes a limit. The limit of time, the limit of energy, the limit of existence. The third law closes the structure, perception. In business and wealth, you are not compensated for what you objectively are. You are compensated for what others perceive you to be. This is not vanity. It is function. Machiavelli already noted that most people judge by appearances, because few can grasp essence. The market behaves the same way. If you appear cheap, you will be pressured. If you appear desperate, you will be exploited. If you appear uncertain, shocked, you will be dismissed. That is why signals define power. Posture, scarcity, presentation, response time, boundaries, price. The average consultant who signals authority earns more than the excellent one who signals insecurity. Because the market buys certainties, not biographies. This is the foundation. Solve big pains, not small ones. Build leverage, not presence. Control perception, not effort. And now comes the part most people avoid, because it requires rupture. Here the common mind collapses. Because up to this point, you can pretend you understood and keep living the same way. But real wealth demands a specific brutality. Removal. The poor believe they need to add. More ideas, more contacts, more time, more motivation. The Machiavellian prince knows that power is born from subtraction, removing variables that weaken. A ruler does not stabilize a kingdom surrounded by parasites, flatterers, and traitors. He purges. And in your modern life, your court is people, habits, and information. You are not only shaped by what you tolerate, you are drained by it. Those who tolerate complainers absorb victimhood. Those who tolerate mediocrity normalize delay. Those who tolerate relationships that worship security above freedom become an anchor to themselves. And this is not drama, it is contagion. Poverty spreads through language, through habits, through fear. It won't work. I can't. That's for rich people. Money changes people. Each sentence is a virus that keeps you obedient. The second purge is informational. You consume content that leaves you anxious, outraged, envious, distracted. This is not by chance. platforms are extraction machines. They mine your attention and turn your focus into profit for someone else. You become the product, and you think it is entertainment. While you scroll, someone accumulates, and then you try to get rich without focus, without silence, without depth. That is impossible. Attention is the raw material of wealth. Whoever controls focus controls destiny. And then comes the moral revelation, the most uncomfortable one. Many remain poor because they feel guilt about money. They were taught that wealth is suspicious, that ambition is ugly, that competing is inhumane, that selling is manipulation, that charging is exploitation. This creates an internal block. You want the result, but you reject the identity that produces that result. You want to win, but you want to look nice while you win. But the market does not reward good feelings. The market does not care about your intention. It cares about effectiveness. Learning how not to be good here does not mean becoming cruel. It means stopping being sentimental in the wrong place. It means accepting that resources are contested. That negotiation is inevitable. That closing is part of the game. That enforcing boundaries is survival. If you are too nice to charge, someone colder will charge in your place. If you are too polite to negotiate salary, the company keeps the difference. If you are too humble to position yourself, the market pushes you down. The final revelation of this block is simple and devastating. The biggest obstacle was not a lack of method. It was you, the character you protect, the identity you think is morally beautiful but strategically useless. And while that character lives, you will continue waiting for the world to be fair. But the world is not fair. It is functional. And functionality has rules, protocols, steps. That is what comes next. Now the training ceases to be philosophy and turns into protocol. First, retention. Many assume wealth means earning more. It doesn't. Wealth is what stays. If you make a lot and spend all of it, you're not rich. You're a conduit through which money flows. The world operates as an extraction system built to pull your capital back out. Taxes, consumption, status, social pressure, inflation, entitlement, comparison. The treat yourself narrative is a refined trap that converts producers into consumers. The rule here is military. Never purchase luxuries with labor. Purchase luxuries with income generated by assets. If you work to buy a car, you become enslaved to maintaining it. If an asset pays for the car, the asset becomes the slave, and what you acquire is time. And time is the real currency. Quiet wealth is the only wealth that endures. Display is debt dressed as status. True power stays silent because it knows visibility draws predators. Second, time. You are dying. Not as drama, but as a clarity trigger. Every minute you sell is gone permanently. And here the gap between rich and poor becomes clear. The poor sell time, the rich acquire it. Your decisions expose your true hourly value. When you perform tasks that could be outsourced cheaply, you're declaring your life is low value. When you stand in line to save small amounts, you're saying your hour is worth cents. This isn't moral, it's mathematical. The method becomes a system. Cut low-value tasks. To automate repetition, delegate what drains energy. Even before you feel ready. The usual excuse, I can't afford help, flips. You can't afford to keep operating without it, because buying time creates the mental space needed to develop high-value skills. And this is what few accept. You defend time the way a prince defends territory. Meetings that could be messages are invasions. Social obligations with no strategic return are emotional taxation. Scarcity of availability increases value. Excess availability invites exploitation. Third, asymmetry. The objective is not to work hard. The objective is to select bets where risk is contained and upside is asymmetric. Employment is poor asymmetry. A capped ceiling, limited upside, and real downside. Getting fired is enough. Building assets, a business, an audience, a scalable product, a rare expertise, is favorable asymmetry. The cost may be controlled time and effort, but the upside can be life-altering. You pursue unfair advantages. Language, geography, access, networks, niche obsession, willingness to do what others avoid, rapid learning ability. The world rewards spikes, not balance. The well-rounded becomes a reliable employee. The spike becomes unavoidable. And finally, the end of hope. Hope is not a strategy. I hope to be promoted. I hope the country improves. I hope to get lucky. This is anesthesia. Machiavelli despised dependence on fortune because it enslaves. The man who lives on hope lives on permission, and no one is coming to save you. This scares the weak, but frees the strong, because responsibility is control. When you stop waiting, you start planning. The real process of wealth is simple, repetitive, and almost boring. Acquire a high-value skill, apply it to expensive pain, charge, turn profit into assets. Repeat. There is no glamour. There is execution. The only variable is discipline. Whether you can do repetitive work without needing motivation. Whether you can study while others distract themselves. Whether you can persist until the result becomes inevitable. Wealth, under consistent execution, becomes mathematical certainty. But execution demands something almost no one warns you about, an invisible cost. And it is from it that the real transformation comes. After that point, change stops being about what you do and becomes about who you are. The real price of wealth is not effort. It is a fracture in identity. You turn into an outlier, someone who reads the world as a field of play, who does not seek validation, who does not depend on being understood, who tolerates being misread, who chooses respect over affection. And that shift generates friction. Old conversations start to feel distant. Your tolerance for constant complaining disappears. You detect excuses before they are even expressed. And this level of clarity isolates you before it liberates you. There comes a moment when you notice the strings, and once you see them, returning to being controlled is no longer possible. You cannot unsee. A trained mind loses its innocence and gains command. Most people step back at this stage because many would rather remain poor and accepted than become wealthy and misinterpreted. They choose belonging over the cost of standing apart. And that is precisely why so few cross this threshold. Not because they lack a method, but because they lack the nerve. The final shift is quiet. You stop pursuing symbols and begin pursuing autonomy. You stop purchasing status and start acquiring time. You stop defending your ambition and begin acting on it. You stop asking, "How do I become rich?" and start asking, "What makes me necessary, rare, and irreplaceable?" In this position, wealth is no longer the objective. It becomes the byproduct. The game transforms because you transform. And when that shift is complete, only one thing remains: the final pact. Now you see why becoming rich is simpler than it appears. Because the mechanism itself is simple. What is hard is abandoning the identity that was conditioned to fail. The system taught you that wealth was complex, so you would not attempt it. It taught you that virtue was sufficient, so you would stay compliant. It taught you that effort was the path, so you would remain a tool for others. But the truth is this: the world does not reward exhaustion. It rewards leverage, It does not reward kindness. It rewards utility. It does not reward hope. It rewards strategy. If this law has gone through you, go back to the comments and repeat your pact. No explanation, no speech, only the sentence. Wealth is leverage, not virtue. And remember, this is not entertainment, it is training. If you continue, each video will be suggested as a step. Not to motivate, to refine your mind until it stops asking for permission. Most will not do this. Most will rationalize, complain, blame the world, and return to the cycle. But you are not here to be most. You are here to be inevitable. Comment, subscribe. The next videos are already on the screen. Continue your mental training.